Yeah, hey everyone. So for today's topic, we're going to continue our file sharing subset of this Linux technical topic. So as we talked about previously, we talked about the differences of sharing files over a network between Linux and Windows. So specifically, we said NFS is typically used with Linux and SMB is typically used with Windows. We talked about the utilization of a UNC path to share a folder over a network. So today's topic is going to be specific to Linux, NFS, and it's going to kind of combine everything we've been talking about previously. So we'll be able to list directories, create a directory which is new. We'll assign a user and a group that we'll create to that directory. We'll use something called the file system table to mount, which we talked about at a high level as well. And we'll install a package so that we can utilize NFS as a client. So with that said, you probably see that I have two different command line terminals on my monitor. So the one on my right is already mounted to an EFS instance. So as you can see here, if I run a disk free new command, df, so it just shows all the disks available to this server and how much utilization they're at, and also where they're mounted locally. So we talked about how NFS looks and feels like a local drive, and that's exactly how. There's a local reference to this mount Boomi directory. So if I cd into mount, we'll see a Boomi directory, and it's owned by the Boomi user and a Boomi group that I created. And if I cd further, Boomi molecule, what you'll see is it's an entire molecule installation directory mounted to this DNS right here, which points to an EFS. So if I go to this specific server, there's no mount Boomi, so there's no reference. If I do a df to anything specific to the installation directory. So as you're aware with a molecule, you do essentially share files over some sort of file server. That's kind of the backbones of our clustered architecture. So what we'll be doing today is kind of cover everything I talked about to get to the point where df returns that specific mount. So we'll be mounted, and we should see this entire installation directory structure. So with that said, the first item is we need to create our mounted on directory. So we need to create mount Boomi. So the way to do that is mkdir, make directory, sudo has to be, or you'll get an error, sudo user do, super user do. So if I create mount Boomi, it should be created. So if I cd into mount, if I do an ls-al, Boomi is there, as you can see, but it's owned by root because I did do a sudo command. So the way to get around that is we're going to change our user. So we do a sudo change ownership, so chown you see right there, to a user and a group. The problem is we don't have a user and a group. So what we have to do before that is we're going to create a user and a group with a unique identifier associated with them. So with that said, what we're going to do is sudo group add. So we're going to add a group called 1002, that ID, and we'll name it Boomi group because these user groups with the IDs should be synonymous across the different node servers. So now that that is created, it should be 1002 because what I'll show you in a second. So if I show ID of the Boomi user, it's assigned to the 1002 ID and that group ID. And the beauty of NFS is there's a specific package. I think it's a daemon specifically. So what it essentially does is it's a name mapping daemon, ID map D, I think it's called. So it's a name mapping daemon for NFS. So basically it assigns those user and group IDs to these names you see over NFS traffic. So pretty cool from that aspect. So continuing to what we were doing, let's create our Boomi user. Sudo user add dash G, so what group, Boomi group dash U, so what user ID, and then the Boomi user. Awesome. So now that that is created, we're going to change, as I said, sudo change ownership to the Boomi user, Boomi group of mount Boomi. Awesome. So what we'll see now is the ownership changed. Pretty cool. So now that we have our local reference, we're going to be downloading an NFS client package like I talked about. So we already talked about packages, their utilization and whatnot. So the package specifically that we're going to be downloading, it's called NFS Utils. That's specific to Red Hat, which is what we're on right now. For Ubuntu, it's called NFS Common. So we're on Red Hat, so we're using yum. So sudo yum install -y. It's called NFS Utils, like I talked about. Cool. So as you can see here, I already had it. It just upgraded my package. But if you don't have it, it's obviously going to download it. So sudo yum install -y and then the package name, like we talked about previously with that. So now that everything is installed that we need, we're going to interact with the file system table. So fstab is basically a table to help with your mounting and unmounting file systems to some sort of machine, that beauty of making them appear local, like we talked about. So it's more specifically in technical aspects, it's more of a set of rules. So any mounts you set in the file system table will be referenced at boot time. So you don't have to constantly remount and unmount. That's part of the beauty of the file system table, is that on boot time, it's going to check all the mounts available, and then it's going to mount them programmatically. So with that said, let's sudo vi etc fs tab. So basically what I did there is I sudo, so super user do. Vi is just an editor. If we haven't covered that, that's all it is. So I'm editing a file in the etc directory called fstab. So vi has its own specific syntax, which I will cover in a second. Basically, I'm just going to get the mount parameters, which we will cover right from here because it's already mounted. So I will copy that. So I'm just control Cing, just so you're aware. Not sure why it's adding that top part there. What if I just do perfect? Awesome. So I copied it. So if you want, so as you can see, I'm in this file system table. I'm just using my arrows to go up and down right now. So I'm going to go to the end here. What I'm going to do, if you want to place data, you use an I. So think of I for insert. I'm going to go all the way to the right because you can't go down a line. Those tildes are basically the end of the file. Click enter. And all I'm going to do is copy paste everything I had there. So basically what you're doing, here's my file system DNS. So where am I mounting to over that NFS traffic? Where is its reference locally? So that mount Boomi directory that we created. NFS v4 is the protocol. So we support NFS v3, NFS v4, and NFS 4.1. So as you can see there, the NFS version is 4.1. Couple other items just to look out for. I mean, these are just default parameters you get right from EFS, but you can see like R size and W size. So basically it's the byte size that NFS client can request to read, or it can write to the embedded server. So just some other items, like for example, retransmission. So if some sort of data gets reset, how many times do you retransmit? What's the timeout of sending data from a client to a server? And all of that good stuff. So to get out of this, you click escape. So now you're not inserting, you click colon. So you can see it on the bottom of my screen. Right, quit, and let's exit. So RQ exclamation point. Enter. So basically we should be good from that aspect. So all I'm going to do now is mount. So the way to do that, sudo mount -a. So mount everything in the file system table. So all. Great. So now that we're mounted, if I run ADF, you can see we are mounted. So we have that file system. So if I cd to mount Boomi, look at what we have now. So we have our molecule directory and then the entire install directory. So that's how you basically mount, and then you can see everything that I see here. So something else pretty cool you might want to see. So if I just create a file here, you can see it on this server. So the way to create a file is the word touch. So I'm going to say touch hello node .txt. I'll sudo. Cool. So we can see it here. And then if I go here, so I'm going to escape. Like I said, I'm not writing, so I'm just quitting. So if I'm here, if I go back a directory, so I should be in that directory. As you can see, there's my hello world file that wasn't there previously. So pretty cool from that aspect. All right. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.